Picture this for a second. You're standing on the shores of Lake Garda, right in northern Italy.
Oh, gorgeous spot.
Right. Beautiful. It's the late 1970s. The water is totally placid, perfectly reflecting the surrounding mountains. You've got, families eating gelato on the promenade, tourists taking these quiet evening strolls.
Yeah, a very sleepy, tranquil vibe.
Exactly. It is this incredibly tranquil vacation atmosphere. And if you were standing there, taking it all in, you would probably think this is the absolute last place on earth you'd find a radical underground cultural revolution.
I mean, you'd expect that in New York or London, maybe, but not a tourist resort in Italy.
Right. But hidden right there, inside that idyllic tourist trap, was ground zero for a sonic earthquake. Like an earthquake that would eventually rewrite the rules of global music.
It really is a brilliant visual contrast. You have this picture-perfect, quiet Italian backdrop, and right in the middle of it, one man is essentially executing an absolute reimagining of how human beings experience rhythm and time.
Which is exactly what we are getting into for today's deep dive. We are exploring a fascinating retrospective piece. It was published in October 2025 by Monumental Movement Records, and it's titled Cosmic Sound and Daniele Baldelli, Dancing Between Space and Speed.
It's a great piece.
It really is. And our mission today is to figure out how Daniele Baldelli looked at the entire rigid music industry of the 70s, basically threw all their rules in the trash, and decided to use the literal speed of sound as an architectural tool.
Yeah, to build something totally unclassifiable.
Right, a movement he just called Cosmic Sound.
And, the reason this specific history matters to you, listening right now, it goes way beyond just learning about some obscure DJ from the 70s.
Oh, absolutely.
Because think about it. We are living in an era where we are constantly bombarded by information that is so rigidly categorized. Every single thing you consume has a label, a genre, a specific algorithm it fits neatly into.
Yeah, the algorithm tells you exactly what bucket you belong in.
Exactly. And we are expected to consume it all so fast. But Baldelli's entire philosophy, his whole worldview, was about bending time. It was about completely ignoring those neat little categories and synthesizing massive contradictions into one unifying experience.
It's basically a masterclass in how to process the world differently.
It really is.
But to really appreciate how different his process was, I think we have to look at what he was rebelling against. Because when you say the word disco in the late 70s, a very specific, highly commercial image comes to mind, right?
Oh, yeah. The status quo was completely dominated by the American sound. We're talking about standard soul, early house music, and crucially, this rhythm called four on the floor.
Okay, right. For anyone who doesn't play an instrument or produce music, what exactly is four on the floor?
It's that relentless, totally predictable bass drum rhythm, like thump, 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 thump.
Right, the heartbeat of disco.
Exactly. Every single beat of a 4/4 measure gets a kick drum. It was a mathematical formula. I mean, it worked, obviously. It got people sweating and dancing, but it was highly standardized.
Very predictable.
Yeah, you went to a club expecting a very specific tempo and a very specific vibe, usually hovering right around 120 beats per minute. It was basically an assembly line of sound.
An assembly line that Baldelli just completely dismantled. Because instead of that predictable thump, the ingredients he was bringing into the DJ booth, it reads like a typographical error.
It really does.
He's taking obscure German electronic rock, mixing it with heavy African percussion, throwing in some Italian synthesizers, and then, topping it off with cinematic movie soundtracks.
Right. If you look at the actual records he was pulling, it is staggering.
Yeah.
He's pulling krautrock bands, like Kraftwerk in Cannes.
Okay, and krautrock is?
Well, krautrock is this very cold, experimental, synthetic, almost robotic German music.
Right, very mechanical.
Extremely.
Yeah.
And he is intentionally clashing that against the incredibly hot, organic, polyrhythmic Afro beat of legends like Fela Kuti or Manu Dibango.
Wow.
And then, on top of that, he's layering in sweeping, dramatic orchestral scores from Ennio Morricone.
It's so wild. It's like a crazy culinary mashup. Imagine a chef taking ingredients that absolutely should not work together on paper, like raw African chilies, cold fermented German cabbage, and Italian synthetic truffle oil.
That sounds terrible.
Right. If you just throw those in a bowl, it should make you sick. But somehow, he figured out a way to create a Michelin star dish that blows your mind.
That culinary analogy is perfect, actually, because it highlights why he did it. Baldelli had this core philosophy. He said, I don't believe in genres, I only believe in the flow of sound.
The flow of sound, I love that.
Yeah, he wasn't throwing these tracks together just to be shocking or avant-garde. He was trying to construct what the source describes as an extraterrestrial jukebox.
An extraterrestrial jukebox?
Right. He wanted to blend that intensely physical bodily rhythm of the African drums with the highly intellectual, mathematical electronic sounds coming out of Europe.
Okay, but logically, how's he dealing with the tempo clash? Because if you're mixing cold, robotic rock with frantic, organic African drums, the speeds just don't match.
They don't match at all.
The tempos are completely different. So how do you make Fela Kuti and Krautrock sound like they belong in the exact same room without it sounding like a train wreck?
Well, this is where Baldelli stops being just a guy playing records and basically becomes an audiophysicist.
Oh, I like that.
His secret weapon was the manipulation of speed itself. He introduced this concept of the cosmic tempo. To make these incredibly disparate tracks fit together, he would take 45 RPM records.
Those are the smaller vinyl singles, right?
Right, the ones specifically cut to be played fast.
Yeah.
He would take those and deliberately play them on the turntable at a sluggish 33 RPM.
Wait, I'm trying to picture this. If I go on YouTube right now, or if I take any digital audio track today and I drastically slow it down by like 20 or 30%, it doesn't sound cosmic.
No, it sounds awful.
It sounds terrible. It sounds broken, like the batteries are dying in a toy. Why didn't he just instantly clear the dance floor with this?
That right there is the crucial difference between digital audio and physical analog vinyl. When you slow down a digital file today, the computer just mathematically stretches the data, and that creates those weird, jittery digital artifacts you're talking about.
Right, it sounds glitchy.
Exactly. But when you take an analog record and physically slow down the rotation of the vinyl, you are altering the actual physics of the sound waves.
Oh, so the actual pitch of the instruments is dropping?
Exactly. The frequencies physically shift downward. So a standard bass line suddenly drops and becomes this massive subterranean rumble that literally vibrates in your chest.
Oh, wow.
And female pop vocals, they drop an octave and become these strange androgynous drawls. The original identity of the song is just completely erased.
That is wild.
By radically altering the tempo, familiar radio hits became totally unrecognizable. They transformed into, as the text puts it, signals from an unknown planet.
So it wasn't about the crowd recognizing the song anymore, like, oh, I love this track. It was about creating completely new texture out of an old song.
Precisely. He was treating speed itself as a primary musical instrument. The retrospective details how he would take a 110 beat per minute funk track, smoothly drag it all the way down to an 85 BPM Afro percussion track, and then slow it down even further into an ambient synthesizer piece.
So he's just bending the energy however he wants.
Yes, he completely erased the boundaries between songs. You weren't dancing to a sequence of individual tracks anymore. You were caught in a single shifting gravitational field.
Man, that's so cool.
The source has this great description. It felt like a spaceship continuously changing its orbital altitude.
Changing orbital altitude. I love that image. But, okay, if you're creating this heavy, alien, gravity-shifting music, you can't exactly do it in a standard, brightly lit disco.
Totally not.
You can't have a Saturday Night Fever light-up floor for this. The physical environment had to match that sonic architecture.
The container always has to match the contents. And from 1979 to 1984, the laboratory for this whole experiment was a venue literally called Discoteca Cosmic.
And the physical space of Discoteca Cosmic sounds absolutely wild, because you have to forget the traditional glitz, the glamour, the giant mirror balls.
No mirror balls here.
Right. This place had incredibly low ceilings, which created these bizarre, oppressive, but deeply immersive acoustics. And visually, the space was basically a void.
Yeah, it was dominated by complete darkness.
Exactly. Complete darkness, pierced only by thick smoke, erratic laser beams, and these strange projectors throwing abstract images around the room.
It was essentially a sensory deprivation chamber that was simultaneously a sensory overload. By removing the traditional loading and the standard visual cues of disco, you force the audience to focus entirely on the auditory experience.
And the detail that stands out most to me about this club is the DJ booth itself, because Baldelli wasn't down on the floor level with the crowd, interacting with them eye to eye.
No, he was way up.
His booth was perched high above the audience. He was physically elevated, literally showering this heavy, slowed-down sound onto the crowd from above.
Think about the psychological shift that creates. Being inside Discoteca Cosmic wasn't about dancing in the traditional performative sense.
Right, because mainstream disco was very much about showing off your moves to your friend.
The hustle, the performance of it all.
Exactly.
This was the exact opposite. It was about floating. It was designed to make you lose all sense of time and physical grounding. It transformed a typical night out at a club into what the source calls a meditation in the night.
A meditation in the night. That is so far removed from the mainstream culture of 1979. But wait, if he's creating this seamless meditation in a pitch-black room, he can't be up there just fumbling with records.
Right.
How is he keeping this illusion alive using 1970s gear? Because there are no laptops. There's no sync button. There's no digital software automatically beat matching his tempos.
The technical skill required to pull this off mechanically is just staggering. It was purely analog magic. And to understand how he built this meditation, we really have to look at the specific mechanical arsenal he brought into that elevated booth.
Okay, let's break down the gear. We know he had two Technics SL1200 turntables, which eventually became the industry standard.
Right.
But he runs those turntables through some very specific hardware. The source mentions an Eco multitone EQ, a Roland Space Echo RE201, and crucially, a Revox tape deck.
Yes.
Now, what are these machines actually doing to the sound? Like, I know what an EQ is. He's carving out the highs and the lows, but what is a Space Echo?
The Roland Space Echo is a fascinating piece of machinery. It is a physical tape delay unit.
Okay.
Meaning inside that physical box, there's a literal loop of magnetic tape constantly running across magnetic recording heads.
Wait, actual tape spinning around inside?
Actual tape. So when Baldelli feeds a sound into it, say a single drum hit from a record, the machine records that sound onto the tape and then plays it back fractions of a second later.
Oh, I see.
This allows him to create these massive, cavernous, echoing and dub sounds. He's physically capturing a moment of sound and stretching it out into an infinite cavern.
That is so cool. And the Revox tape deck, that's just for playing pre-recorded cassettes.
No, and this is where it gets truly revolutionary. He was using open reel-to-reel tape loops. He wasn't just playing pre-recorded tapes. He was using the tape machine to capture pieces of the vinyl record he was currently playing.
Live.
Live. He would slightly offset those sounds and rearrange them on the fly. He would layer these slightly delayed repeating sounds right over the live vinyl.
Wow. It's like he was doing live audio Photoshop.
That's a great way to put it.
But instead of layering images, he's layering time. He's taking a piece of sound, copy-pasting it with the magnetic tape, and slightly dragging it out of alignment to create shadows and rhythmic echoes.
It is a brilliant way to conceptualize it. He was copy-pasting time itself. By layering these sounds slightly out of phase, he created this organic, pulsating, rhythmic breathing.
Rhythmic breathing.
Yeah, the machinery literally started to sound alive. And the historical weight of this technique just cannot be overstated. By physically looping and manipulating those tapes live, he was inventing the prehistory of modern sampler music.
Before samplers even existed.
Exactly. He wasn't just playing recorded music, he was actively composing entirely new music out of those recordings live, in the dark, right in front of 1,000 people. He turned playback equipment into an instrument of creation.
It's incredible. But Discoteca Cosmic had a relatively short run, right? It eventually closed its doors in 1984.
It did, yeah.
So the physical space vanished, but a technique this innovative, a philosophy this radical, it couldn't just disappear into the ether. Where did that sonic DNA migrate?
It migrated, and it adapted to completely new environments. The evolutionary tree here is fascinating. The philosophy of treating music as a flowing, genreless experience traveled from the shores of northern Italy all the way to the island of Ibiza in the late 1980s.
Wait, Ibiza?
Yeah.
That geography, it doesn't make intuitive sense to me, because Ibiza is famous for sunny beaches, massive open-air clubs, and a very hedonistic daytime party culture.
Very true.
That is the exact opposite of a dark, low-ceiling, sensory deprivation Italian bunker. How did this dark, heavy sound translate to a sunny beach?
Because it wasn't the dark aesthetic that transferred, it was the philosophy. When pioneering Ibiza DJs like Alfredo and Jose Padilla got a hold of this cosmic sound, they adapted it.
Okay, so they tweaked it for the sunshine.
Right. They took Baldelli's core technique, that slow, hypnotic 85 to 100 beats per minute tempo, and the absolute refusal to stick to one genre, and they applied it to a sunset on the beach.
Oh, wow.
Instead of making it sound oppressive and alien, they made it sound open, airy, and sun-drenched. You'd have like a slow hip-hop beat mixed with a Spanish acoustic guitar, mixed with a gentle synthesizer.
Ah, so the tempo and the eclectic mixing remained, but the mood adapted to the environment.
Precisely. And that sun-drenched adaptation became known globally as the Balearic beat. And from the beaches of Ibiza, that specific slowed-down genre-blurring sound crossed the channel into the UK.
And blew up there.
Oh, it fundamentally reshaped global club culture there.
Yeah.
It directly influenced massive UK acts like Andrew Weatherall and The Orb, who used those exact same principles to pioneer the UK chill-out and new disco movements.
It's amazing to trace that timeline, and the MMR retrospective walks us all the way up to the present day, showing just how resilient this idea really is.
It never really died.
No. You had a massive revival in 1990 with the Cosmic the Original mixtape series spreading the sound even further. Then the 2000s saw a whole new generation rediscover the analog warmth during the new disco boom.
Right.
In 2020, Baldelli actually did a 45th anniversary tour, proving the sound still pulls a crowd. And now, as this 2025 piece proves, cosmic sound isn't just some niche memory for music nerds. It's being formally studied as a crucial, foundational chapter of club history. Even massive modern DJs today, guys like Harvey and Tornado Wallace, are cited as directly carrying this exact DNA in their sets.
Which brings us to the ultimate takeaway from all of this. When you look at that 50-year legacy, from a dark Italian club to Ibiza to the UK to global modern festivals, it becomes clear that cosmic sound was never just a musical subgenre.
Right, it was much bigger than that.
It was the international transmission of a completely new way to experience the flow of time through sound. Baldelli taught generations of artists that you absolutely do not have to be bound by the speed or the genre or the category a piece of media was originally packaged in.
Let's recap this incredible journey because it's a lot to take in. We started with a guy in a sleepy Italian resort town who looked at a highly commercial, rigid, rule-bound industry and said, no, I'm going to do the exact opposite.
And he did.
He really did. Baldelli took entirely disparate elements: organic African drums, cold German synthesizers, cinematic movie soundtracks, and he ignored all the rules. He used mechanical tape machines to copy and paste time, he slowed down the rotation of the earth beneath the needle, and he manipulated speed itself to create a unified, meditative, floating experience for his audience.
He proved that the most profound connections often happen when you force seemingly incompatible things to share the same space at a speed no one expects. And there's a quote from Baldelli himself in the piece that perfectly encapsulates his whole worldview. He said, "Cosmic is not about searching space, but the inner space."
The inner space. That is exactly what we need to take away from this. Because in our modern lives, we are so strictly bound by the right speed.
Oh, constantly.
Algorithms constantly sort our media, our news, our entire lives into incredibly neat, predictable categories. And we are so desperate to consume it all, to stay on top of the flow of information, that we often listen to things at 1.5 or even 2 times speed.
Just flying through it.
Exactly. We are just rushing to get through it, basically skimming the surface of our own lives. But what if you did the exact opposite? What if you took all those conflicting, disparate pieces of information, all those stressful, chaotic inputs in your own life, and instead of rushing through them to get to the end, you radically slowed them down? What if you stripped away the labels telling you what they're supposed to mean and just allowed them to flow together at their own cosmic tempo? You might just stop frantically searching for answers in the external world and finally discover your own inner space.